The Cubs are back home today after a series loss against Tampa Bay. They lose yesterday 3-2. Justin Steele delivered 6 shutout innings, and somehow the Cubs found a way to blow yet another game. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the Cubs finally bunting and how it scratched across a couple of runs, although the Cubs were not able to maintain the lead. That and more on this edition of the Cubs Baseball Channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Jump in the comment section. Let us know how you're feeling about this team as they embark on a long homestand as they try to get back into not only the division race, but the wild card race as well. Make sure to like and subscribe, ring the bell, jump in the comment section, and here is your invitation to our show. What do you say, everybody? Unfortunately, not good news to report out of the latest Cubs games, but my name is Anthony Pasquale on Twitter at @Ant_Pasquale3. Mick Gillespie will be with us on the next show, but guys, it's just been so frustrating lately. The Chicago Cubs team has been giving you game after game the exact same way. They get a narrow lead early, a strong start from their starting pitching, and then by the end of the game, they blow it because their offense can't score enough runs and their bullpen gives the game away late. And it was no different yesterday as the Cubs lose to the Rays 3-2 after leading 2-0 in the game. They give up 3 runs in the 7th inning and they take the loss. They lose the series and they now fall to 33-36. Let's talk a little bit about the Cubs infield defense. Dansby Swanson had the day off yesterday. Nico Horner started at short and was pretty good. Patrick Wisdom, 2 errors. It's getting to the point where you cannot play this guy anywhere but DH. He's not a good first baseman, and you would obviously much rather have Michael Busch or Cody Bellinger there. At third, he's not much better than Christopher Morel, but you'd rather Morel's bat, and you'd rather David Bodie's bat, honestly, depending on the scenario. But it's getting to the point where you really can't use Wisdom at any place but designate a hitter. And right now, with the Cubs having 5 outfielders that they want to get in the lineup, Cody Bellinger, Pete Crow-Armstrong, Seiya Suzuki, Ian Happ, Mike Tauchman, if you get all 5 guys in that lineup on a daily basis, which would mean Bellinger at first and one of those guys at DH, that means Patrick Wisdom doesn't have a huge role on this team. But 2 errors yesterday from the third base spot. Not great from Patrick Wisdom, and it's something that's a little bit hard to overcome. All the runs that the Cubs gave up yesterday were earned, so it's not like Wisdom's errors costed the Cubs runs, but you have to be better than that. But one thing that we've been talking about a lot about this Cubs team lately is they've struggled with runners in scoring position. Yesterday, they were 0 for 4 again, so it just adds on to the list of game after game after game where the Cubs haven't been good enough with runners in scoring position. But the Cubs did score 2 runs on 3 bunts, something that is so anti-Craig Counsell. We've talked about it in the comments section and on this show before. Craig Counsell is a guy that respects the analytics, perhaps to a fault, with lefty-righty matchups and this, that, and the other thing. And part of those analytics state that bunting is not a smart baseball move. You know, the percentages show that you're bound to get that big hit more often than a bunt turns into a run for your team. But yesterday, the Cubs scratched across 2 runs by bunting 3 times in the row. The Cubs had first and second with no outs. Patrick Wisdom sacrificed bunted, which made it second and third with 1 out. Then came Pete Crow-Armstrong, who did a safety squeeze. The run scored on an error. Now it's first and third. Then Yan Gomes bunted, scored the run from third. Now it's 2-0. Pete Crow-Armstrong on second with 2 outs. The Cubs weren't able to score Pete Crow-Armstrong, but they did get those 2 runs across because of 3 bunts. And Mick and I were texting privately during the game. They just bunted. They just bunted again. They bunted 3 times in a row. It was like a huge deal because even though Craig Counsell hates it, it led to 2 runs. So now 2 things. One, the Cubs shouldn't have a game where their only runs score on bunts. That means the offense isn't good enough. That's something that we know, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But the other thing it means is maybe Craig Counsell is coming around on the fact that at some point this team has to try harder to manufacture runs. And it seems like that's something that Craig Counsell is finally clicking with a little bit. This team needs to try to manufacture runs. They're not going to slug the ball out of the ballpark more than any other team. They're not going to single you to death like some other teams. But if they use the bunt and they use the base running to their advantage, they can scratch some runs across. And that's something the Cubs are definitely going to need to do, as offense has been hard to come by. They finished the game with only 3 hits. Cody Bellinger had one, Michael Busch had one, and Nico Hoerner had one. 3 hits typically is not good enough to win you a ball game. So the offense definitely needs to get better. But the Cubs had another great start from Justin Steele. He delivered 6 shutout innings, only allowed 3 hits, 1 walk. He struck out 5 batters across those 6 innings. He was at 93 pitches, so there was some speculation that he might come out for the 7th. Instead, it was Mark Leiter Jr., who unfortunately gave us one of his worst outings of the year, only lasted 2/3 of an inning, gave up 3 runs on 3 hits and a walk. Not your best for Mark Leiter, and the Cubs end up losing 3-2. But let's talk about Steele. His last 4 starts, 25 innings pitched, 2 earned runs. He's starting to turn back into that Cy Young Award nomination type of guy, and he's a guy that the Cubs need to rely on as the season continues. But the fact of the matter is, he's been unbelievably unlucky. He has 0 wins recorded in terms of wins in his own win column since September 4th of last year. The bad luck just continues to strike. Obviously, he was injured in his first start of the year. His second start of the year, he pitched 4 shutout innings, was taken out, and the Cubs lost that game. He had a game against Milwaukee with 7 shutout innings that the Cubs lost 5-0. He had the game last night with 6 shutout innings, and the Cubs lose it 3-2. He pitched Paul Skeen's first start. He pitched 2 games with rain delays. Insane bad luck for Justin Steele. But the good thing is he's starting to come to form, and he's a guy that you can rely on to give you 6 or 7 shutout or 1-run innings every time out there. So he's turning back into form. The only issue is when he starts, the Cubs haven't been able to get in the win column. I expect that to change soon, but it's extremely peculiar that in Justin Steele's last 12 starts, despite pitching well a lot of the time, he has not been able to record a win. So hopefully that changes soon. We mentioned this earlier, but what's new? As has been the case as of late, the bullpen blows a small lead once again. It's the Cubs, they're boring for the reason that they play the same game every day. The offense is able to scratch a couple of runs across early. They build a lead. As you go throughout the game, the Cubs squander the lead. They're unable to add to the lead because their offense cannot hit with runners in scoring position, and the bullpen ultimately blows the lead, and the Cubs lose a close game. That's what happens day after day after day. And it was the same in the first game of the series. It almost happened the second game of the series, and it definitely happened yesterday. The Cubs had a 2-0 lead because of a couple of bunts that gave the Cubs 2 runs. They had a quality start from their pitcher, 6 innings, no runs allowed. You get into the later innings, the bullpen gives up the lead, the offense can't get it back, and the Cubs lose 3-2. That's been the formula of Cubs losses these days, and yesterday was no different. Mark Leiter Jr. gets charged with a blown save and a loss. That is officially the Cubs' 15th blown save of the season. You win half of those games, and the Cubs are what, 41-28, and near the top of the division and best record in the National League. If you win half of the games that you blew, instead you're heading into the middle of June with 15 losses that could have been wins on your schedule. You're 3 games below 500 and almost 9 games back. I think 8 is the official tally in the division. That needs to get better, and one way to get better at that is to win in your division, with the Cubs having a chance to do that today. They play the Cardinals. Ben Brown was scheduled to start today, Friday, 1:20. Nothing's better than that at Wrigley Field. Ben Brown was originally scheduled to start, but he's on the injured list with a neck strain, so it's going to be Jordan Wicks getting the start for the Cubs. He's 1-2 on the season with a 4.44 ERA. This is going to be his first start in a while. Remember, he had that injury back in May and came back in a bullpen facet, pitching 3 innings in his first appearance out of the bullpen earlier this month after his lengthy trip on the injured list. He's going to get the start for the Cubs, and he's going to be up against former Oriole Kyle Gibson, who's 4-2 with a 3.76 ERA. Both pitchers are a little bit better than their ERA states, and I feel like the key word whenever I do these shows talking about the Cubs and their potential to turn it around is hopefully. Hopefully the Cubs get on Aaron Civale early. Hopefully the Cubs can attack early. Hopefully the Cubs can score some runs. Hopefully the Cubs can get a series win. Hopefully the Cubs can win today. So I'm going to try not to say hopefully this time. But Kyle Gibson is a guy that the Cubs should have success against. Dansby Swanson has had good numbers against him. Yan Gomes has had good numbers against him. Ian Happ, Nico Hoerner. So all signs point to the Cubs scoring some runs against the Cardinals today. Here's to believing, not hoping, we're believing that the Cubs can get the bats going and get a W in the win column and start this weekend, Father's Day weekend, off right. They play the Cardinals today. Kyle Gibson on the mound. 1:20 is your start time, and we'll be talking to you after the game with a recap of what we believe will be a Cubs win. Not going to say hopefully. We believe the Cubs will win today. But that'll do it for us on the Cubs Baseball channel. Again, my name is Anthony Pasquale. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. Jump in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Why does this Cubs offense struggle so much with runners in scoring position? Why are they able to set the table so much but not able to clean it up? It's an issue that needs to be corrected if the Cubs want to get where they're going. But right now, looking in the mirror, this is a bad team, and they need to be better. So here's to believing that the Cubs can get back on track against the Cardinals as they come to town to Wrigley this week. But ring the bell, like and subscribe, jump in the comments section. But for now, I'm Anthony. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Go Cubs.